Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. I will be doing the video that I talked about earlier today. I'm going to address Phil's response to the whole controversy. But right now, I want to talk about something that's actually important, something that is very significant. It happened today. Just bear with me a second. My phone is running out of energy. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Just bear with me a second. So today there was a major development in the Laquan McDonald case. Officer Jason Van Dyke has been found guilty of second-degree murder, and he's also been found guilty of 16 counts of aggravated battery with a firearm. His sentencing is scheduled for October 31st. And, this is very important because from what I understand, this is the first officer since 1980 in Chicago that's been indicted for such a crime. And he's actually been convicted, which is very rare. Rarely are police officers convicted in these types of cases involving police brutality. Now, the jury makeup is very important as well. Here, there were 8 women and 4 men, 1 black person, 3 Hispanics, 7 whites, and 1 Asian. That's significant because it shows that, like, despite the race of the jurors, they were able to look at the evidence and judge it in a fair and impartial way and find this man guilty. Because this is a man who at first said that Laquan McDonald was charging him. He was posing a threat, moving towards him with a weapon. But when the video evidence proved that he was not moving towards this officer, it proved that he was moving away from the officer at the time when that officer shot that brother 16 times. So the people were able to look at the evidence. They weighed this man's credibility. He testified. And, they just didn't believe his testimony. He was to insist that he was felt threatened by Laquan McDonald, even though Laquan McDonald was moving away from him. So this is a very important development. And another thing that was pointed out during the trial is that before they even arrived on the scene, this officer was already talking about how he was going to have to shoot Laquan McDonald before he could even assess the situation. So that undermined his credibility, and it made it clear to the people, the jurors, that this man had no justification for killing Laquan McDonald. And the video speaks for itself. Now, the jurors made a significant statement about the situation. They said that they didn't think that the race was a part of the deliberations. That didn't come up during the deliberations. And I just find that odd given what was going on, given the racial tension that this case brought about. You had a lot of protesters and a lot of people were on edge. They thought that perhaps something would happen if this man was found not guilty. We saw what happened in Ferguson, and we saw what happened in Baltimore when you had the situation involving Freddie Gray. After Freddie Gray was killed, and after his funeral, people erupted, and there was rebellion in the streets, and people were concerned that that would happen now. So I just want to share my thoughts about this very briefly. And before I do so, I want to shout out the people who have tuned in. Shout out to Soup Bone. What's up with you? Shout out to Hollow Ninja. Shout out to you. Shout out to Confidence A1. Shout out to Big Game Orenthal. And yeah, so I just want to shout y'all out real quick, and I want to let you all know that I will be back up in a few minutes to address the situation from the Advice Show. But stuff like this is way more important than that kind of stuff, man. Stuff like this, where you have a situation involving police brutality and where you actually have justice. This is so important, that we actually have an example of an officer being brought to justice for the unjustified killing of a black man. But too often, people are more fixated on sensationalism, man, and gossip and stuff. Now, there is some importance to this whole Phil from the Advice Show issue, and I'm going to talk about the importance of that. But things like this deserve more of our attention than that kind of stuff. And I'm here to, I would be willing to bet all kinds of money if I was a betting man that this particular stream will have less views than the stream that I'm about to do about this man and his personal situation. Again, I'm not downplaying the significance of that, but when you compare it to something like this, it pales in comparison in terms of how important it is. But this whole situation just makes it clear why we need to continue to have body cameras, why you need to have these dash cameras when it comes to these police. These police are untrustworthy. They lie constantly. We saw the same situation involving, the brother who was shot and killed in Charleston, South Carolina, Walter Scott, where he was gunned down, shot in his back multiple times. They tried to plant something on him, and they would have got away with that if there wasn't a citizen who captured that whole incident on video. You had this situation. Without the footage, people would have took that officer's word as the truth. They would have believed what that officer said when he said that he thought this young brother was moving towards him with this weapon when he was clearly moving away from him. So we need to have these cameras. I know some people have concerns about civil liberties and all that stuff, but these cameras make a difference because it is hard to prosecute these cases without them. So, this is a prime example because we can't rely on the words of these police officers too often make misrepresentations and outright lie. I mean, we have situations in Baltimore, for instance, where police have been captured on video planting drugs on people, where police have been exposed for carrying around toy guns to plant on people so that they can justify killing people. So this is a very important development, man. It's just like, we need more of this. Situations like this where you actually have justice, where you actually have an officer convicted. And there was another case involving another brother, Edward Jordan, young brother, killed by police, and that police officer was convicted for killing that brother. And you had this case right here where another police officer is being convicted for killing a black man. And that's what we need. We need accountability for these police, because if they are not held accountable, they will continue to kill black people, and they will feel that they have a license to hunt and kill black people. And, it's just a great thing that you actually have an example of justice. This gives us some kind of glimmer of hope that there is a possibility that this justice system can hold these police officers accountable. And the last thing I want to address is this, man. I think part of the reason why it was possible to hold this officer accountable, in addition to all the things that I mentioned before, is the fact that you have protesters who were outraged by this incident of police brutality. And those protesters were willing to do what was necessary to bring about change. They were on edge. They were waiting to hear what happened in this particular case. They were prepared to take matters into their own hands. And I think that factored into the whole situation. So, so I'm going to look through your comments before I close out. Again, I want to remind you that I will be doing a live stream later on to deal with this advised show situation. So y'all look out for that. But I just wish that things like this will receive the same type of attention or more attention than, these other types of matters. I mean, it's just unfortunate. I mean, and this is, this whole thing with Phil, the advised show, is bigger than gossip. But you can compare it to gossip. I mean, it's just a shame that kind of stuff gets more attention and draws more people than these kind of issues. Like, I talk about like really serious things on this channel. I talk about like what's happening with Brett Kavanaugh being possibly appointed to the Supreme Court. Those type of videos don't receive nowhere near as much attention as some video about some interracial stuff, And I just think that speaks to, it speaks to something in our community. I mean, and I understand that those subjects are important as well, but they're not nearly as important as who's going to be on our Supreme Court. They're not nearly as important as police brutality. And then, you know, so yeah, I will get around to talking about that. I will be talking about that tonight. What I'm going to do is just go through his statement. You know, he provided a video where he responded to these issues. And what I'm going to do is go through it step by step and provide my response. And then I'm done talking about him. I'm done with that whole subject. But before I close out, let me look at your comments real quick. Um, so someone asked if he's been sentenced yet. He's not been sentenced. He will be sentenced on October 31st. But they did take away his bond and they put him into custody. So he's being held. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to True Royal Family. Shout out to Ali Emmett. Um, so Big Game Orenthal, James said, this is the first time the camera has had any significance in the killing, though. In a killing. I don't think that that's the case because you had the Walter Scott case where he was captured on video, uh, you know, where that officer was captured on video shooting Walter Scott in the back multiple times. And that wasn't a body camera, though. That wasn't a police body camera. That was a citizen who captured the footage. So that is important. You know, I don't think that we can downplay the significance of it. You do have a lot of situations where even though you have video evidence, these police still walk. We saw that in the case of Eric Garner. We saw that in the case of the brother who was shot and killed by this officer, Shelby, and she ended up being some kind of instructor after killing this brother. I forget the brother's name. And then you had a couple of other cases like that. They were captured on video, but still the police officer got away with it. So I get your point. Your point is valid and very real, but I think that it helps to have video evidence of these shootings. So somebody said, why carry on about the advised show thing when you knew his non-wife, you know, his wife was non-black before? I'm gonna, well, I can just address that real briefly now. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, there were a lot of people suggesting that his wife was Afro-Latina. So people knew that she wasn't African American, but they thought that perhaps she was a woman of color. They thought that perhaps she was Afro Latina. So once it was proven that she wasn't black at all, that she was just straight up white, you know, despite what he's saying, that's when it became an issue. That's when it wasn't just like, you know, it was contrary to what he was representing. He was representing that this woman was Afro-Latino or mixed with African American or black, when the fact of the matter is she wasn't. You know, so that goes to character, that goes to somebody's trustworthiness and all that kind of stuff. You know, someone that you know, projects this pro-black image. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait before I go into that. You know, I'll just go into that when I do the live stream on that subject. I want to focus primarily on this right now. You know, this killing of Laquan McDonald and the justice that was rendered today. So I'll address all that Phil and the advice show stuff in a few minutes. It's probably gonna be about an hour when I come back on here. Yeah, he was. Hasib pointed out that he was sentenced for each shot that he fired. Yeah, because they found that each one of those shots was aggravated battery with a firearm. And I think that that's a great development, that you actually have, you know, a situation where somebody was convicted. Now, somebody said I need to talk louder. Hopefully, y'all can hear me okay. I'm in this condo and I have, there's some other people here and I don't want to be too noisy or whatever. So hopefully, y'all can hear me loud enough. And I have a cold too, so y'all got to bear with me. Shout out to Nikki Justice. Um, yeah, so with that, I'm going to close this out, man. Anyway, I just want to, just say peace and blessings to each and every one of you. And I just think that this is a great development, and I hope we see more of this. I hope we see more of these cops that commit crimes be punished and held accountable just like any other citizen. Peace.